Brent Freeman with the CBB Group. In today's episode, we're going to review the 2021 market activity with regards to business sales and business valuations. Now, I just returned from the National Association of Certified Valuators, and they had some top speakers with regards to business valuation, exit planning, and of course, merger and acquisitions. They had people from and speakers from the middle market, lower middle market, private equity, and capital groups. So in this video, I thought it'd be good for us to review the 2021 market, take a look at kind of what happened and where it went, the current buyer and seller activity and current sentiments, the headwinds facing 2022, the second half, as well as 2023, valuation multiples that are expected in the next 3 to 6 months, as well as some exit planning statistics that I was able to get for the conference. So if you're a buyer and seller thinking about either purchasing or selling a business, stick around. You might get something out of this video. The lower middle market is defined by companies with revenues between 10 million and 100 million. And in 2021, there were a total of 16,700 transactions that were recorded. That represents an increase of 26% from 2020 and 19.65% over 2019. Reviewing the top reasons that sellers went to market in 2021. You'll take a look at the first one, which is retirement and health concerns, which is traditionally what drives sellers exiting their business. And that was 44%. The next one was really the President Biden's Build Back Better program, which had fairly significant tax consequences for capital gains, and that drove 22% of the market and was the primary reason that 2021 and even the first quarter of 2022 saw a significant increase in sales transactions. And then the last three, family issues, new opportunities, and recapitalizations, each came in at 11% and is pretty much standard what we see in the market year over year. I find this slide fairly interesting. So the red line represents buyer activity from May of 2020 through July of 2022, and the blue line represents seller activity and or seller sentiment. So if you look at the line May of 2020, you can see a pretty good separation between the amount of seller activity in the market and buyer demand. So it was a good time to be a seller because there was a lot of buyer demand in the market. As you get closer to May of 2021, those two lines start to come together and equal a pretty balanced market on a go-forward basis. In January of 2022, you can see those lines cross right over, where kind of the peak of the market as far as multiples and buyer-seller activity. Then going into the first half of 2022, you see the seller sentiment or going to market activity falling while the buyer activity remains pretty strong. So a couple points that you can take out of this chart is that demand for businesses remains strong. There are plenty of buyers in the market, while seller activity, with obviously for some of the reasons that are in the market today, has started to fall. The headwinds facing current private businesses have never been quite as diversified as they are today. And having been in business for over 45 years, I've never quite seen the current market conditions that are identified in this survey. For privately owned businesses, the number one concern on a go-forward basis is inflation, followed by supply chain issues and labor availability. So those three, I think, are fairly unique in combination, and we've not seen them before, or at least in the last 20 plus years. Followed up, kind of the next tranche talks about economic uncertainty, upcoming elections, government regulations and taxes, and the last one, which I find kind of interesting, is interest rate changes. So a really unique set of headwinds that private business owners are trying to negotiate and are having effect on both valuations and market availability of businesses, and really kind of speak to some of the trends we saw in the last slide. So how are the headwinds expected to affect valuations or multiples in the next 3 months? So in this slide, it really breaks it down by a deal size or enterprise value. In those transactions with enterprise values of $1 million and less, there's probably a tightening, this would be a consensus, that valuations would fall, from what I'm hearing in the market, maybe a quarter turn or a quarter point on value. Transactions that are greater than $2 million will probably not experience too much of a valuation decline in the next 3 to 6 months. I found this slide prepared by Pepperdine's private capital markets report to be fairly interesting. And it really talks about the amount of exit planning that took place for sellers in 2021. For businesses that sold between $500,000 and $1 million, only 17% of them had any exit planning activity at all. Now, if you move that up one level, or businesses that sold between $1 million and $2 million, they had 40% of the sellers had actually partaken in some level of exit planning. Now, I can't stress enough, Bill and I really recommend that if you're considering selling your business, that you start exit planning activities 1 to 2 years ahead of time. It'll not only increase your ability to sell your company, but will probably be able to drive some extra profitability or net proceeds to you during that period. So contact a merger and acquisition advisor or your CPA to start that process. So there you have it, a review of 2021 for the lower middle market and business sales across the United States. We'll take a look a little bit of the headwinds facing the market in 2022 and 2023. But on a short term, on looking at the pros and the cons, on the pro side, the buyer activity remains strong going into the second half of 2022. Along with their ability to access capital. On the con side, there are fewer sellers coming into the market, and those sellers are facing headwinds plus a lack of predictability, tightening the market on a little bit of a go-forward basis. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video, you got something out of it, and as always, we'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.